Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, TTouch practitioner, and craniosacral therapist for animals and people. And this is Tristan, who is a Corgi. And this is Conversations with a Corgi, episode 21, I think. And we are continuing today to discuss our journey through some of the TTouches that you can use to improve your pet's health and wellness and enhance your relationship with your pet. The touch we'll be talking about today is Tarantulas Pulling the Plow. As I've mentioned in the past, our TTouches are all named after animals so that we can remember them and also remember what the important aspects of that particular touch are based on the animal name it has. So Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is reminiscent of that song that we all sang as children, the Itsy Bitsy Spider. And if you remember the hand movements you used when you sang that song, you'll remember how to do Tarantulas Pulling the Plow. So the Itsy Bitsy Spider song, you just went, Itsy Bitsy Spider went up the water spout, and you were moving your fingers one to the other. So for Tarantulas Pulling the Plow, you're going to have to make a little plow for your spiders to pull, and that would be your two thumbs like this. So then the Itsy Bitsy Spider part is just the middle finger and the first finger alternating, taking steps and pulling your plow down your field, which is your dog's body and fur. This movement was inspired by the ancient Mongolian treatment of skin rolling. Now, skin rolling as a treatment can be very painful because what it really is doing is breaking up the fascial restrictions between your skin and the tissues under it. Now, this fascia is, just to get a picture of it in your mind, is similar to the white stuff that's between the skin and the chicken when you're trying to take the skin off of a piece of chicken. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't do that very much anymore. But that area can get restrictions in it that look almost like wads of chewing gum in your hair. And so there are many techniques, including myotherapy, myofascial therapy, even the other work I do, craniosacral therapy, and yin yoga, where you hold a pose for a long time that seems a fairly easy pose. Anything like that is going to stretch the fascia and allow that chewing gum wad to unravel and become straight again. So Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is one way that we can allow that fascia to realign its fibers and free up its restrictions in a gentle way. So for instance, if I made my hands into a wad of chewing gum here, what this work will do when you're doing any kind of myofascial work is gradually allow those fibers that are in the chewing gum wad to release and then line up and stretch to go back to their original position, whereas in this position they're like in a scar tissue wad. And so when they're stretched and flat, even scar tissue can become quite functional and bendable and usable. So this is a really good technique because you are accessing the fascial system of the body with this. Craniosacral, Tellington TTouch work, as I've said before, accesses the nervous system, as does craniosacral, not necessarily the muscular system of the body. So when we're doing this work, we're really giving information to the body that will have an effect similar to skin rolling, because what we're doing is much lighter, and we are not ripping apart any parts of the fascia when we do this work. And in fact, it is a TTouch we use often on very sensitive animals and animals that don't really like to be touched. They like this technique. And so we also have found with skin rolling that we are able to release an emotional response, habitual patterns of emotional response, because those little balls of fibers that end up in your fascial system can be from an emotional trauma or a physical trauma. For instance, to think about this, if you are on the phone holding your head this way and you get bad news, you'll tense up your body, and that position you are in when you receive that news will be held in your body until it's released through some of the things that I do, such as TTouch work, craniosacral therapy, and Feldenkrais work, because all three of these modalities work to release every layer of the restriction, the emotional, the spiritual, the cognitive, the physical, so that your body is able to move on and get past that restriction into an aspect of functionality and mobility that it could not have when it had this restriction in it. So it's able to release, this TTouch, Tarantulas Pulling the Plow, is able to release long-standing patterns, because once you get this restriction, your body will wall that off and find a way to move that allows that restriction to not interfere with movement as much as possible. So you may develop a slight limp or a habitual way of not raising one arm all the way up, or not moving your wrist side to side because maybe you broke your elbow at one point and you've just got it in your your body memory that you can't go that far to the side. So TTouch work, craniosacral, and in fact Feldenkrais work are three of the things that you can use to help free up that restriction in a painless way so that your body can erase the bad muscle memory and get onto one that's more functional. And Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is one of the best techniques we have with TTouch to do this, although everything we do with TTouch is going to help release those restrictions and the habitual memory and the way of moving that is not at its optimum. So we have this less invasive version of skin rolling that we do with Tarantulas Pulling the Plow. Animals that don't like stroking or brushing or being touched often find this Tarantulas Pulling the Plow to be a comforting introduction to our TTouch circles. It's also very effective with older animals who are quite sensitive when they're touched. And why is that? These restrictions and traumas build up in the body over a lifetime, and when you are a senior person or a senior animal, you have a number of these, and your body can find a way to move around that, but when you've got 5 of them right next to each other, you start to get stiff and you can't move as much as you could before. If this is something that's happening to you personally, you can use Tarantulas Pulling the Plow, but a yin yoga class can be very beneficial because you hold the poses, which are fairly simple ones, for a very long time. And that allows the fascia to reform in a more functional way. It stretches it slowly. In craniosacral land, we talk about the idea of fascia being like a giant ship at sea. And if you try to use all of your strength with a rope to pull it in, you won't make any progress. But if you use a gentle force over a long period of time, it will gradually come into you. And that's the same as the work with the fascia. A gentle force or a gentle amount of movement over a long period of time, such as holding a yoga pose for 2 minutes or 15 minutes, can actually allow that fascia to reform and stretch into a more functional pattern where the fibers are aligned like this as they were in the beginning. Now, there are parts of our bodies where the fascia is more, cross pattern like this, where areas where we need strength instead of flexibility. So with the Tarantulas Pulling the Plow, it is a great thing to do with a senior dog just because they have many more of those restrictions that have built up over time. Maybe when they were playing as a puppy and they were a little bit, roughhoused with another dog and they've got a little bit of a sore shoulder, or maybe there's a time when they slipped on the ice and fell down some stairs into the yard, or maybe they slid out on the kitchen floor because they were getting older and the fur between the pads on their paws was getting too long. So there are many, many things that can be happening in our senior dogs that can cause restrictions in the fascia. So this movement is always done in the direction of the hair or across the hair, never against the hair. I should never say never at TTouch work because occasionally, almost everything we do, we can do another way if we have the correct reason. But going against the hair, as I said yesterday, is very uncomfortable on your dog or on yourself. So we always start Tarantulas Pulling the Plow from the nose end of the dog and work towards their tail. This goes for cats and horses as well. And that is because that's the direction the hair is falling naturally. So you're going to place your hands side by side with your fingertips separated and curved like a little spider. And then the plow are your thummies. And you can have them right like this or a little bit overlapping depending on the size of your animal. I tend to leave mine this way, and then just these. Now here's the thing, you're only using your index finger and your middle finger, but these last two fingers, if you do the Spock handshake a lot, you'll be really able to do this better initially. These last two fingers, you want to keep them relaxed. You don't want to allow tension to creep into them as you're using your first two fingers to do this walking movement. Okay, the other two fingers should be lightly curved and touching your animal's body. They're just dragging along. And it's good to practice this. I always remember back in the day when we had different kinds of telephones and we had telephone books, they had that thing, let your fingers do the walking through the yellow pages. And it was just your first two fingers taking a walk. So that's basically what this is. The first two fingers are taking a walk, and the thumb is dragging, and then they're just walking with the fingers on the other hand. And it's nice if you can remember the Itsy Bitsy Spider song, because of the rhythm when we do this. You know, the Itsy Bitsy Spider song fits nicely with it. See, the Itsy Bitsy Spider went up the water spout, down came the rain, and washed the spider out. So it's got a rhythm to it. You're not just running your fingers like this. You want them to have a little bit of a march in your spider. So the thumbs are lightly extended behind the fingers, and then you just walk your hands simultaneously forward down the dog's body while allowing your thumbs to follow behind. And the thumbs are going to push a light furrow of hair along like a plow. So I have some different stuffed animals to show this on because I need one that's pretty loose so you can see what's happening. So today, in honor of my friend's birthday, they have wiener dogs, dachshunds. This is Schnitzel. He is a wiener. He's kind of a short wiener, but he's also fluffy and light. So I will put him here so you can see this is his head. And I'm going to make my tarantula plows here. And then my fingers are going to go down his body. I don't know if you can see this very well. He might have to lay down. And go down his body doing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. And I don't know if you can see, but his skin is kind of rolling. Let's put you on Tristan so you can see better. See how his skin is rolling between my fingers and my thumbs? It's bunching up like this as I go. And that, when it's not done in a painful way with real skin rolling massage, is quite relaxing, and it feels really good, and it's freeing up restrictions in the body. I still don't know if you guys can see that. When we get to the tail end, we do like a little squeeze, just a little firm, like a reminder, here's your tail. Now, if you have an animal like Tristan's girlfriend here, who's fluffier, you might even see this better. Tristan's got to hold all the stuffed dogs today. So she, because she's a puppet, really does bunch up under my hands. And this is going to have an effect through the entire body of the dog. And we usually just do, 5 or 6 of these down one side and the other. It's not something you do for 20 minutes. And then we always do that little reminder at the end where we have a bit of a pause. And just so you can see this a little better, what my hands are doing with a dog that doesn't roll up, we have our British Corgi here. So my thummies are the plows, and then we're taking a walk with these fingers here and just allowing the thumbs to come along behind. And I can say from my perspective, understanding neuroanatomy, that I think the wonderful thing about this touch is that you've got this sort of, pinpoint pressure of the fingers marching, and then it's being smoothed over by the thumb. So that is giving your nervous system a different kind of information than if you were just doing the little pokey part of it or the slidey part of it, because it's allowing your body to say, oh, pay attention here, and then sliding over it, so that if there is something, when you're saying pay attention here where there's a restriction, the sliding over it smooths it out. Now, to show you this on Tristan, I'm going to probably have to position his buns towards you so that we're not going backwards on his hair. I'll spin you around, Biss. He says, wait, I'm not facing the camera. That's not what they taught me in film school. All right. Maybe from here, oh, he's hiding, I can show you how to do this on an actual dog. So you can see that I'm doing the itsy bitsy spider with the front fingers. And his hairs are just coming up. Notice how they stand up as my thumbs get closer and then are smoothed down as I continue down. And Tristan is shedding, like many dogs are right now. We'll be doing an entire Facebook Live on dog hair in a few days. And this is actually a really good way to loosen some of the hair that's coming off of your dog if you have a husky or a Malamute who does not like to be brushed like some of those northern breeds. This is a good way to loosen up some of the hair. And actually we have a few TTouches that are useful for a dog that does not like to be brushed. What do you think, Scooter? Okay, you can turn around again. So that gives you an idea of what this looks like on your dog. If you have a Doberman or a Boxer or a Pit Bull, you have a smooth-coated dog with a good layer between their skin and the surface so that it's actually really easy to do Tarantulas pulling a plow with them. So some of the benefits and uses for Tarantulas pulling a plow is that it changes the emotional response. So if you have a dog that's having a typical kind of barking fit with the mailman, for instance, based on some long time ago fear when they saw the mailman, it's a good idea to try this TTouch because maybe they have restrictions in their body from the first day they jumped off the sofa when they saw the mailman, and now they've had a bit of a sore shoulder, and their body remembers that every time they see the mailman. So Tarantulas pulling the plow is a good way to change an emotional response to a situation. And like so many of our TTouches, tarantulas increase circulation, and it's a really great thing to do for a dog, as I said, who has issues with grooming or sensitivity in their body. And it really has loosened up a lot of hair on him just doing it today. And when you get to that little bit at the end, and you pause here, you actually can get a little clump of hair there so that later you can take that off and make a little pile of hair next to your dog. So it is a really good way to groom your dog. With the pressure, you want to gently move the skin between your forefinger and thumb. You are not pushing down hard. You are not making an effort to bunch up a lot of skin here. You're just letting your thumbs slide along, and whatever the skin does under your thumbs is what's going to happen. And you're not trying to break up those restrictions in any particular way. Now, one of the things I love about tarantulas pulling the plow, because of its unique ability to affect the nervous system between the walking of the tarantula and the plowing of the thumbs, is that it's really, really a great technique to use for a dog like so many Corgis who has DM or any other neurologic problem. If you have a dog with acute Lyme disease, this might be too much for him, but it's a really good TTouch to try if that is the case. I have used this with our friend Coco up the road, the little Cairn Terrier, because she developed 3 or 4 tick-borne diseases at once, anaplasmosis, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and Lyme disease, and woke up one day crying and could not even stand up. And this is one of the TTouches that I suggested that her owner do right away to bring her some relief so that she could indeed just walk to the water bowl in the kitchen that morning. She's fine now. So I find that Tarantulas Pulling the Plow offers a really unique way of connecting with the nervous system of your dog. Now, I've had 2 Corgis that have had this disease, DM, degenerative myelopathy, and as I've said before, it's like Lou Gehrig's disease in people. They become paralyzed first in their hind legs and then down through their middle and finally in their front legs and their head and neck. It is a terrible thing to see an old dog succumbing to this. My dogs have had carts. One of my dogs refused to use his cart, which we called his bike, not to give him a complex for having a dog wheelchair. So we called it his bike, and many people decorate them and make them fun. And a lot of Corgis in particular I've known have done really well in their cart, you know, getting back that mobility they had, running around the yard, catching balls. My dog Winston actually went swimming in his quite a lot. He had a really rough and ready kind of cart because he was a four-wheel drive dog. So many of these dogs regain some functionality when they've got the support on their hind end. But I find Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is one of the most important TTouches to do with these dogs. There's no hard evidence that we can slow the disease or slow its progression or stop it in any way. But I have had a lot of experience with dogs with this problem, and I have found that Tarantulas Pulling the Plow and a few other TTouches, which we haven't gotten to yet, are some of the best things that you can do to help that dog. Because if you're going from front to back, you are connecting the front of your dog to the back of your dog, and you're supplying nervous input at the same time. And because of the way our brain is structured, you know, the right side can teach the left side things, and also the front and back of the dog can be connected in a similar way, so that the functionality you have in the front legs can be a reminder to the hind end that it does, as Linda says, remember its potential for perfection, so that we can remind the back end that it can move. And I know people who have had paralysis problems in their own lives who are able to use their reflexes to walk. And so I do believe that there are many things that we can do that we have not yet fully explored to help these senior Corgis with DM. And I think Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is one of these really important techniques that anyone can do with their dogs. And again, you're just letting your thumbs drag behind as the fingers do the walking down through your dog's fur. And you want to make a connection with the skin. You don't want to just skim over the top, because that's ticklish. And you want to really get that connection into the entire system of the dog. So anyone who has a Corgi with DM, or even a disc problem, or any other type of dog with Lyme disease and some of the systemic nervous disease problems, I really encourage you to do Tarantulas Pulling the Plow with them, really on a daily basis, several times a day. Now Tristan is just reminding me, come here honey, that you can also do tarantulas, especially if you have a big dog like my niece's dog Mila. You can do little tarantulas down their legs like this. And he has such short legs, and he's licking my hand as I do this, because this is his sore shoulder side. Let's try this side. Well, Tristan, you have turkey breath. And again, when you get to the end, just give the paw a little support so that you're not walking off of the paw. Honey, you have a lot of licking. So this is a great thing to do. If you have a dog with long legs and he's lying down on his side, do the Tarantulas Pulling a Plow down their legs. You're not going to see this kind of movement we get here with the skin rolling up because it's quite tight on their legs, but it's so relaxing after a hard run or a long walk or a good game of fetch to be able to do this down your dog's front legs or their back legs. I think it's really important after a dog has had any kind of surgery. As I keep saying, many dogs have ACL and patella surgery, or a horse with stifle surgery. You can do these Tarantulas Pulling a Plow down their legs and also down their spine. And I try to really visualize mobility under my fingers when I'm doing this, because really any part of the body that doesn't have movement is a part of the body that is in a state of dis-ease. It's not in ease. Movement is part of our health, and that is the basis for many, many types of work that I do. So Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is a great thing for you to try with your pet at home, especially if they've had any kind of nervous system disease, and especially if you have a senior dog, any kind of gait problem. And again, you're just letting your thumbs be a plow and then doing the itsy bitsy spider walk with your first two fingers. And try to be aware of what your other fingers are doing. You don't want them sticking up like this, because that puts tension in your hands and then it gets really hard to itsy bitsy spider. Practice this on yourself, on your leg, somewhere where you can see it, because I think sometimes for people, if you can't get used to your fingers connecting like this, seeing it on a leg, or something flat, even on the kitchen table, is sometimes easier to get used to it. So you've got the visual and the physical feedback from your fingers as you're doing this. And as you can see, it's pretty fun once you learn how to do it, to just do this. So that's Tarantula Pulling the Plow TTouch. This TTouch is not named after a specific spider, but I do think in many of our minds it has to do with the itsy bitsy spider that we all sang in our nursery rhyme in elementary school, going up the water spout. And with April showers on their way, it's a nice time to think about the gifts of the spiders in our lives. I know many people are really afraid of spiders, which is amazing to me. That many people who are afraid of spiders are not afraid of snakes. I'm afraid of snakes, but not spiders. And I remember a woman's really emotional story of trying to use a spider vacuum on her porch to pick the spiders off the walls and then taking them outside to liberate them. And I could not believe that a woman who was so terrified of spiders was able to use one of these little spider vacuums and then take them outside to liberate them. She was so brave, much braver than I would be. It would be hard for me to have a little snake vacuum and go around the yard and then take them somewhere. So I always remember her courage in doing that and her compassion for something that she was so terrified of. So Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is a great technique of TTouch for you to use, especially if your dog is a senior dog, has any kind of spine problems, disc surgery, DM, Lyme disease. There are so many uses for this TTouch. Try it on yourself and other people in your life and see how it feels, because it really is a unique sensation when you do this work. And if you'd like to learn more about fascia, we will be talking more about fascia when I begin a series of conversations with a Corgi, talking about some of the aspects of craniosacral therapy. So we will be revisiting fascia many times. But if you want to get a sense of what it's like, get a turkey or a chicken at the grocery store and look at that tissue between the skin and the meat. Fascia surrounds every fiber in our body. It is a huge system, and electrical signals travel faster on fascia than any other thing in your body, including your nervous system. So fascia is a really important part of our makeup. And Tarantulas Pulling the Plow is one way that we have TTouch to influence the fascial connections in your body or your pets. So this is Tristan Corgi. He's rested up a little bit since his big day at the tax office. And Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington TTouch practitioner, for today's Conversations with a Corgi, Tarantulas Pulling a Plow. And I also am excited to announce that early in April, I've been invited by Dr. Bernie Siegel, a friend of mine, to appear with him on a radio show that he does on Tuesdays at noon. If you are in the Connecticut area, I'm not sure what channel it is yet, but please tune in, because Bernie is a very inspiring person and he's really amazing. And I believe that maybe on Sunday I'll talk about one of his wonderful books about animals. He's written several, including one about rabbits. How could I not love someone who's written a book about rabbits, one of my favorite animals? So that's an exciting announcement, and I will see you tomorrow as we continue our journey through some of the specialized TTouches. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's gray and cloudy. We're predicting snow and rain here, and it's only 20 degrees yet again. And we may try doing some of our live feeds from the dining room, so you'll have a view of the nature that's in my backyard, as well as Tristan. I don't know, it's going to be a little hard to get him stabilized on some pillows in there. He may be on the dining room table. So have a great day. It's also the weekend of Raw Roundup, which is a forum for people to learn about feeding raw food and dog nutrition and feeding dogs in general. This is an online course that takes place starting tonight and tomorrow and the next day. My sister will be speaking on Sunday morning at 9:30. But if you have any questions about raw food or Some of the great people who have influenced my life in a positive way. Marty Goldstein, he's a vet that was from New York State, near where I used to live. He will be speaking as well. So you can still register for Raw Roundup, I believe. They take a finite number of people to make it a little more participatory, but check it out if you can. And it's a part of Dogs Naturally magazine, so some of the information will be in that magazine as well. So go and make some sunshine in your world today, especially if you live in New England, because we're not having any sun from the sun here. Have a great day.